Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 306. The number was just right in front of me, and I don't even remember it. Of Dial the Gate. My name is David Reed. I appreciate you being with me. We are the Stargate Oral History Project, and if I don't get blown away to Oz, we should have a show for you here. It is raining corgis outside. I've got my producer, Linda Gategabber Fury, joining me for this episode, along with Mr. Corin Nemec. Hello, sir. Welcome back to Dial the Gate.
Crowd
How you
goes
doing?
wild. Doing very well, thank you. Raining corgis. I am on my way.
Right. Absolutely. And I just
Mine's
realized
right there laying on the floor.
Is one laying there?
He's laying right over there on the floor behind me. Oh, you can see a piece of his ear.
And I just realized I hadn't set up this camera. So we're going to do this real quick. Like that. And then Linda, hi. How you doing?
Doing
There
good.
you are. Good to see you. How are things in San Diego?
The weather is really weird. No tornadoes.
Good.
But
This is good.
like a hot 90 degrees one day and then like 50 degrees the next. It's just been very strange spring. And the whole family is down with COVID.
Oh, geez.
I've missed it so far. I think because I had it back last summer after Comic-Con. So
Well,
I have somehow avoided it altogether. So
me
I
too.
I
I've
don't
never
know what
had
that says
symptoms.
about me, but
We're made of Teflon. I guess we're made of Teflon. So I've been waiting
I'm
for
an
symptoms all
alien,
along.
So it's like my whole system inside, my internal workings are totally different than everybody else. So it's
you're an alien, right?
yes,
so
yes,
you're
I'm
from another
immune
world.
to these things, these earthling diseases and things. I don't get them. These earthly flus.
Jeez, man. You were talking heavily about your character building process, beginning to near the end of the conversation the last time we were on together, all three of us. And we were discussing this because you recently came out with a book, and that, of course, is the wrong dimensions too, so I'm going to fix that there. Creating a character for the stage or life, an introduction to the new era acting technique. This is, and I think, Linda, you had a copy as well. There it is.
Yeah,
There it is. It's cloaking and uncloaking.
Mine out.
There we go. Hey, perfect. You can see the link for that in the description below if you guys want to get a copy. I recommend it. One of the things that I approached you about was we've been doing this show for 5 years now, and I really haven't sat down with anyone to specifically talk about the process of creation, and not necessarily creation out of whole cloth, but of taking material, raw material that's on a page and bringing it to life. And there are a lot of ways of doing that. This is one of the oldest professions on the earth. And you have had a lot of experience in this industry since you were a kid. And so I really wanted to approach you about this from two perspectives. One, obviously, Jonas Quinn, because, Jonas is A, awesome, and B, he's our connection to you through this franchise. But also Harold Lauder, who was a Stephen King creation in the original miniseries in the 90s, directed by Mick Garris, if I'm not mistaken.
Great guy.
And everyone, I'm sure there are people who are like, okay, why these two? Mainly because, other than a couple of reasons, they're very different people, other than their resourcefulness. And I think they also care a lot of what other people think about them. Other than that, they're completely different. And I want to take a script character and originally and weave him through Jonas with the book character that you adapted, and see how we go from there. Does that sound good to you, Linda?
Yeah, I think that would be really fun. I reread the different steps of the process that you outline in your book, and I was like, I really kind of want to try this myself. But of course, I, am completely between community theater things and have been for 15 years. So I don't know when I'm going to get a chance.
Well, honestly, it's one of those things that you can do just for fun around the house. You can get a play that you enjoy and and even when you're alone, you can just run dialogue, run monologues, and just try it in different accents, different characters, different dispositions. I mean, just for fun. You could even invite some friends over and do, some script readings and stuff just for the heck of it.
Adult
I
playtime. It
can
sounds
think
like
of
what
it.
it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can think of exactly the friends.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we're doing that some weekend soon.
Yeah, it'd be a blast.
If you're in the audience, you're more than welcome in the YouTube chat to submit questions to Corin. The mods will get them over to me, and we'll have them near the end of the show. Corin,
The
when
mods, do they pull up on scooters with Union Jack shirts on and stuff, and
And wrenches.
listening to English Beat?
Oh gosh, looking at a character like Jonas, when you first saw the words on the page for a character like that, or when you approach any character, what is your first thought? What is the first thing that goes through your head? Is it compatibility? Is it, oh, I think I can do something with that? Are there characters where you're like, and honestly, I'd be curious to know, no, I couldn't do that. I couldn't possibly do that, or I don't want to do that, or how do you approach building a character?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing is to read the description that the writer has put forth, either in the script or in the breakdown for the audition or whatever. That generally there'll be some type of clue as to what they're looking for, and hopefully I hit the target for it. I do tend to find my own way to whatever the character is, and maybe sometimes I hit the nail on the head, and other times maybe I make a choice that's outside the realms of what it is they're looking for. But really it's what feels most comfortable to me, for me as an actor, what comes out organically. I mean, obviously, if the breakdown says, the guy's an Appalachian, and he's not very well read, he's hunched over, whatever, there's certain characteristics that they may describe that you just can't work around. You have to hit the target on certain character descriptions and stuff like that. But otherwise, I'll just run the material and see what I'm compelled to do as an actor, what feels most natural and organic for me, before I've done any real character analysis. A lot of times, especially with auditions, there's not enough time necessarily to really break down a character and do a full history for the character, and you also don't have, normally they don't even release a whole script to you, depending on what the project is, so you'll only have whatever is in the pages that you're delivered for the audition. So that alone can make it tough, but it's exciting, but it's tough.
Sure. Linda, make sure you have your phone on you. I'm messaging you.
Check that phone.
I will check that phone.
We're talking behind your back, Corin. Corin, I think
okay. I'm used to it.
You would probably agree with me that I think we underestimate failure way too much in terms of what it can teach us. When you're going through this process, have you ever had an experience where it was like, this is not for me? I get what they're doing, but I'm not the one to carry this.
Not necessarily. I mean, I've definitely made some choices in the audition room that didn't work. There was this one audition I had for this Vietnam series. This was years ago. It might have been in the late 90s or so, but it was a great script, a great part. But the scenes were scripted with this. There was a monkey that was dressed up like a little soldier that was in these scenes, and the character has to interact with the monkey, and the monkey like crawls into his arms and all of this stuff. And
this is a great scene, everybody. This is a great story.
I was like, how am I supposed to do this? And so I went to Toys R Us when it existed, and went to the toy section, the stuffy section there. And lo and behold, I found a stuffed monkey that was literally wearing as close to a military uniform as you could find. And I was like, this is fortuitous. This is like a God shot. I am meant to bring this into the audition room with me.
He was made for the audition.
Yeah, so I took it in. It was in a backpack and everything, and I waited until we got to those scenes, and then I unzipped it and I withdrew this stuffed monkey, and I proceeded to do this whole scene with the stuffed monkey and all of that stuff. And unbeknownst to me, they were dying inside. They thought that it was just the most ridiculous, hilarious thing they'd ever seen. I didn't get the part, but I actually felt like I really connected with this monkey. I really felt like if they had watched it with with some type of objectivity without being, it was probably the fact that it was actually dressed the way that it's written in the script. They're probably like, did he like go home and sew this outfit together himself or what? I'm sure they had thought that I had absolutely lost my mind.
Absolutely. I mean, part of me would be like, tell them the story when you get in there. And then the other part of me would be like, they're not going to believe him for a second. That is not happening.
Oh gosh. So yeah, it's tough to make the right choices in an audition, especially nowadays because all the auditions are done digitally. So there is no opportunity for somebody in the room to redirect you, to say yes, but no, try this instead, or maybe a little less anger, or maybe a little more anger, or whatever the case may be. So really, it's a real roll of the dice now, and then you also have to pray that they even watch them.
Uh, No, when you went and auditioned for Jonas, I've sort of heard that they kind of just grabbed you out of the hall when
Uh,
you were there for another project. Is that true?
Yeah, well, I was down in this quad area at MGM, that they don't have studios anymore, but at their corporate offices, and I was auditioning for a totally different project, and the breakdown for the new character had just come out that morning, and I'm just going to shoot myself because I cannot remember the casting director's name right now, but they were walking through the quad area, and I'd auditioned for them in the past for other things, and they just stopped and said hello to me, and we just started having a chat, and and just they were just saying how things going. I'm like, yeah, good, this, that, the other, and then they started looking at me, and they started kind of whispering to each other. They're like, Heath Ledger, whatever, and I was like, Heath Ledger, and they're like, yeah, you kind of look like Heath Ledger, and I was like, well, that's strange, that's a weird thing, but okay, thank you. And they said, we just got this new breakdown for this character in Stargate, and you could be perfect for it. And I was like, I was well familiar with the series. I was much more familiar with the feature film because I didn't have Showtime. But all I knew about the series was all the billboards and bus banners and posters for it. Every time the new season was coming out, they would saturate Los Angeles with Stargate stuff. And I was like, wow, that must be a big hit for Showtime. I just didn't have Showtime in my cable thing. I rarely watched television back then anyway. So as it turned out, they just sent my material up there, my past, material in my demo reel, and I got it through that alone, and just I guess the excitement of the casting people thinking that I could be right for it. But really, my audition was in that final episode of season 5 because they basically were like, let's see how it works. If he gels with the other actors and he's good on set and everybody gets along, then we'll likely bring him on to play this character in the rest of the series, or the rest of that season and
Yeah.
change. But so that was when I found that out. I kind of thought when I first got it, I was like, okay, this is great. I'm going to go do this, and then I'll be back for next season. It'll be great. And then I found out through my manager at the time, Robert Stein. He like called me up like right before I was flying up there. He's like, now listen, if they don't, if they're not feeling you while you're doing this episode, you may not go on to the full season. And I was like, what? Don't tell me that. That's terrible pressure to put on me. And then when I got up there, the wardrobe was cool, but that outfit they had me in, the vest thing and everything was very stiff. It was really, really rigid, and it kept my posture. It was like wearing what are the things that the women wore? Yeah, it was like
Like a
wearing a
corset,
corset.
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it totally was. And so I was like really like stiff. I was like, I had to kind of turn like this and stuff. And I was, so that was challenging alone to feel relaxed in the getup. And I just, I just had to make it part of the performance really. And I was definitely had nerves, doing that because for me, it was a great opportunity to get involved with a franchise that already had a long track record of success, and to be a part of a franchise that came from one of my favorite sci-fi movies that's ever been made. The Stargate, the feature film, was absolutely one of my favorites. I just thought it was an incredibly well executed sci-fi movie, and I was also already interested in the whole kind of ancient aliens type of theories and aliens in the Bible, and what the mixed use of the pyramids in ancient Egypt, what were they really used for, and all of this stuff, and had actually done in the late 90s, had done a short course at the Rosicrucian College up in San Jose,
Okay.
California, about the sacred use of the pyramids and stuff. And they basically, in this course, they essentially said that they were astral projection chambers. So this idea of them being stargates, and this idea of being able to travel to other planetary systems and things like that, using them was more done in astral projection, not like physically, but they were going there spiritually or in their etheric form, and
Transmitting
they
a
would be
piece of
able to
themselves. Yeah.
and they would be able to project their consciousness into other higher dimensional realms, or other star systems, or other whatever you want to call it.
Well, quantum entanglement, all kinds of
It
things
was,
going
yeah,
on
it
there.
was
Yeah.
fascinating. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
fascinating.
It's interesting that SG-1 did that with the stones. After you left, they had these devices where you could exchange each other's consciousness.
Oh.
So it sounds like they played with that for sure. What about Jonas was easily accessible to you, and what did you really have to work on?
Um, I'd say really what was most easily accessible to me about Jonas was just his innate sense of curiosity. Um, that's very organic to me. I'm a curious person. I'm an interested person, and his amiable nature, it's just that's very true to my nature as well. I don't like to be confrontational necessarily. It's not like my knee-jerk reaction, I hope, to be confrontational, but I'd rather be a problem solver than a problem maker.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah. And what about Harold? Was there stuff about him that was just right there on the page that suggested the character from the audition sides for that? Or did you have to in your book you talk about if possible trying to talk with the director and the writer. Did you get a chance for either character to do that before you started playing them?
Not really. I mean, from the Harold Lauder perspective, that was an audition that I really didn't think that I had a chance in hell of getting.
Really?
I had auditioned a couple of years before for the movie Sleepwalkers,
Yeah.
and unbeknownst to me, Mick Garris really loved the performance that I delivered, but didn't think that I had the right physical attributes for the character, and that was an overall consensus with the producers and other people. But so he felt like I had the raw talent to bring characters to life that were interesting and unique. So when I got the breakdown for Harold Lauder, I understood who this guy was, but the character description was really the opposite of I'm slim fit. I'm I have I think I have a pretty decent complexion, and the character, the way the character was described was heavy set, overweight with bad complexion, and then all of the other attributes that they listed. And so immediately I was like, I don't even understand why they're bringing me in for this, but I get who the character is, in terms of him not feeling like he fits in anywhere, and that he's just, he wants to be a part of something. He's in love with somebody who's way outside of his realm of reality for dating, and the Molly Ringwald character, of course, and
it's every man's male fantasy that he and her are the only ones left on Earth.
And so I got a load of who this guy was. I had a decent amount of time to work on the material, so I was able to get completely off book for it. I didn't have to have my audition sides in my hand or anything, and I went into the room and we spoke about it, for a little bit. I didn't want to get too far out of character while I was in the room, so I didn't want to have too much chit chat going on before we dove into it, because it's such a peculiar character to play. I mean, there's a lot going on with him that it took a while for me, even when we were filming, for me to be able to get to the point where it was easy to jump into the character and jump out of the character. There was for the first month or so of filming, there was a lot of of time that I spent in the dressing room and all of that, just maintaining that the idea of who Harold was, and his behaviors, how he physically behaves, and all of that. And so I did the audition, and they were talking back and forth a little bit and everything, and it seemed odd, but it seemed kind of positive, and they just were like sort of like, thank you, whatever, and I left, and literally by the time I got home from the audition, they called and said, we'd like to hire him for this. And I was like, that is insane. I was like, I was so sure that there wasn't a chance in hell that I was going to get that job just because of the physical attributes. But then once I got on set and I got to speak with Mick a little bit, and he told me that he's the one who recommended me for the part. He had talked to Steven about me and said that he believed that I could do the part, even though I didn't look the part. He really believed that I could bring the character to life, and apparently he had to fight pretty hard to even get me in the room, because just based on my headshot alone, Steven was like, "Nah, that's not Harold Lauder.
He's too pretty.
So,
He's too pretty."
Oh, thanks, buddy.
Go ahead.
But it opened up a whole new vista of opportunities for me as an actor, finally getting a chance to really play a character role, something that was really outside the box for me, especially from anything I had played in the past. And it was just a wonderful, wonderful experience working with such a great group of talented actors and filmmakers, and to be on set, on a project for 5.5 months it's dreamy. The longer the shoot, the better, as far as I'm concerned.
This was the first character that I had seen you in, and I had fallen in love with King through It a few years earlier, and then just watched every miniseries after that. But if you go, and anyone who is not listening, if you haven't seen The Stand, the original, not the new one, the new one is ungodly.
Doesn't have Corin in it.
It's a real shame, because, and I'd love to talk with you about that offline at some point, but I would argue that Harold has the greatest arc of the show.
Yes.
Because he starts in this middle space and ascends, and then goes to hell, and then, I mean, in Harold's words, I was misled. But when you have a performance that you think was really good, and you're like, oh, I really want this. I have to have this. And you don't get it. What are your parameters as an actor for compartmentalizing this? It's a gig. It's not the end of the world. Something else will be along next to try. How do you not get absolutely washed away in regret for something that you know you could have really sunk your teeth into and wrapped your head around?
I don't know. I was so busy from age 12 acting onward that, there was a like, I remember auditioning for two of the different characters in Stand By Me, both the Will Wheaton character and the River Phoenix character. But I didn't fit the mold for either one of them, but they did audition me for both of them. And that was after I had done the movie uh, Tucker, A Man in His Dream, playing Jeff Bridges' son.
Yeah.
And I mean, I wanted one of those parts so bad, but I was also a little younger than those guys, and I looked really young for my age back then. And I didn't get that movie, and I was just so bummed about that. I really, really, really wanted that job on as either one of those characters. But that was the only time that I really remember a true sense of like regret, like I can't believe I didn't, get it. Otherwise it sort of just becomes this blob of no's. You know what I mean? The one thing that you got to get used to in the film and television industry is the word no. And after a while, that you can't hang on to it. I mean, it's tough enough being, going on 40 years in the industry, and although every audition is an opportunity to practice my craft, so that alone is exciting. But when you're 40 years in the industry and you're still doing the auditioning and all of this, and it's still like, I mean, even though I work quite a bit, in comparison to a lot of other actors out there, so I am blessed, no doubt. It's tough because at the end of the day, every role could be the last that you ever do. It's a very fickle industry. It's not an industry that can be relied on um, as a career that you could gamble on and say guaranteed this is going to last forever. It just doesn't work that way in this business. And it is tough. I mean, I definitely have gone through quite a few ups and downs in my career, just in terms of, wanting, maybe wanting to be busier on bigger projects, more. I mean, I've done, how many really bad B movies have I been in? But at the same time, when I get an opportunity to act, I get excited about it. So it doesn't matter if it's sand sharks or dragon wasps or, raging
Mosquitoes.
sharks or Mansquito or Robo Croc or, SS Doom Trooper or any of these other sci-fi originals that I did. It's just a great opportunity to go and be on set and be a part of something that I love, and I have a good attitude about it. But if it wasn't for being in Manu's class, I don't know if I would have the kind of longevity that I do have. His being in his class taught me exactly what I said, that there's no permanence to the idea of being in the film business, and that's on every level. That doesn't matter if you're a makeup artist or a prop master, or you work in grip and electric, or you're a cinematographer, or it doesn't matter. My father's one of the best production designers that's probably ever been in the business. and he still works to this day, but he goes through the same thing I do. We talk, and he's like, I keep getting these films, and then they fall apart, and I've done all this work for them, and then they don't get greenlit, and then am I, are they concerned about my age when he's, because he's in his early mid 70s now, and he doesn't look like it at all. But he still rides his bike like 120 miles a day with no problem. He's very youthful. He looks great, and he's just got talent that is beyond words. Joe Nemec III, if anybody wants to look him up. But so I mean, I know that it's something that just I have to be willing to let go of it as much as I want to embrace it. You know what I mean?
For sure.
Yeah. Now, with episodic television, you're constantly getting a new script and learning something new about your character with every script, or at least with every script that focuses on your character in some way. How do you deal with that? I mean, you've built your character, you have an idea of, what you think their life was, and then you get information that maybe doesn't even gel with that. How do you reconcile that and incorporate it in?
Yeah, that's interesting, actually, because I did a reoccurring character on Supernatural, and it turned out that my character was a demon, but they never let me know that, and I had made certain character choices that I felt were really right for the character.
Yeah.
That at the end, when they revealed the script, that I was like, oh, I'm a demon. It actually made me go, you know what? I'm so glad that I didn't know that, because I may or may not have chose peculiarities of the character that could have potentially given that away. So it was actually really cool that I didn't know that until the script came out that revealed it. And then to me, it made the character even more interesting watching it, up to that reveal. As far as like a character like Jonas Quinn, the writers, they're so great over there. The writing producing team at on Stargate, they were just so good at, even if it was different writers writing different stories, they were so good at keeping a through line of a character and not really deviating too much from it, except for whatever they're putting the character through.
Okay.
But generally, unless something happens to that character, like there's some type of, maybe it gets a symbiote in him or something, or
Right.
whatever, there's certain elements of the story where the character could change in a really drastic, dynamic way that doesn't make sense to what you expect out of the character. But for Jonas, I think that they did a really great job just keeping that through line of who this guy was, and allowing me some flexibility and creative freedom to bring my own quirks and my own character traits to it that aren't necessarily in the script.
When you have ideas for someone, how much of it depends on the behavior of the producers, how open they are to you going and saying something about it, or contributing ideas? Or are there situations where it's like, I'm not going to go near them, they've got it figured out, I've just got to trust it? Or do you always feel encouraged to say something and to incorporate things? What do you do in a circumstance where, I've got an idea for something, but you just have people at the other end who are, applying pen to paper, who just aren't receptive?
Yeah, you definitely have to read the room. You know what I mean? You got, it's depending on who's in charge creatively. Definitely, it's important for me to know my rank in the order of things, and not to allow for an egoistic approach to my work, and believing that I'm more important than the overall
No.
production.
Yeah.
Well, that's easy. That can happen. You know what I mean? That can absolutely happen. And I'm, I've witnessed it on rare occasions. Almost 90+% of all of the actors I've ever worked with have always had great attitudes and have really been 100% behind making whatever there is better. But it is about reading the room and figuring out what might be allowable to introduce that might not have been there before. For me, it's, studying with Manu as well, is he always talked about crushing reality into our scene work. So, he liked to get us to introduce behaviors and activities that weren't necessarily on the page of the material we were bringing into the workshop. And that really is, what are people doing? Like, I mean, there was one time when I did some monologue. I don't know. I think it was, what was it from? It was God, I can't remember the name of the play now. But I did anyway. I did this one monologue, and I chose to be building a house of cards while I was doing the monologue. Other times I've chosen other activities and stuff, but it took my attention and focus off of performing this, this character for the audience, and put this attention and focus on having to make sure that the cards lined up right, that they were balanced, that I could get everything, and so the dialogue was coming out as almost like second nature, not like something that was forced at all. And then the frustrations of trying to build it when it would fall down in the middle of the monologue, and then having to pick back up. It brings something more to it when something can be introduced into the scene as far as activity goes. So I mean, with Jonas, one of the things I did do a lot of eating and drinking and things like that. That was sort of one of the character traits that I thought was fun for him, because coming from another planet,
he's experiencing everything for the first time.
Yes, exactly. And the biggest thing that from another planet, what you're going to be hit with most is, what are you eating? What are you drinking? What's there as sustenance for you? And what was maybe the food like, or on my planet, on Langara, back home, and I in my mind, I pretended, or I created this history that food where I'm from is very bland, not exciting. There's not really gourmet chefs, and it's all sort of like this, kind of like, a cafeteria at a big corporation, just a corporate cafeteria, lunch, school food, just,
nutrients, just nutrients.
Yeah, school lunch food rather.
Yeah.
And so I thought that was an interesting, approach to it. There was a little bit of frustration with me in one particular scene with an orange, but that's a different story. After that scene, they were like, "Look, if it's not in the script, don't do it." And I was like, "Okay, fine, you got me." But I felt like that figuring out like the banana in space scene, that to me was the banana was not scripted, and I felt like it brought something to that scene that really made it like a totally different experience for the audience than if they just were watching two aliens sitting, on the deck of a spaceship talking.
Jeez.
Yeah, see, that was one of the things I enjoyed most, honestly, were those little things that, I mean, I'm now finding out they were all little things that you just sort of snuck into the character. But they were moments that were really seriously fun. And when I'm talking about the character of Jonas with other fans, those are the ones that always come up in conversation. I mean, we're like, remember the banana scene? Oh, the orange, and it's all over the table. We love those. They shouldn't have made you take anything out. What about with like other characters you've played? Harold, was there anything that you snuck in there? Or
yeah, I'd love to know the answer to that.
Yeah, Harold was really, I think that the wardrobing, figuring out the wardrobe of this guy, what he was dressed, how he liked to dress, the behaviors for me, it was just it was a lot of, he was an introvert who did not want to be an introvert. It was like
Yeah.
he was fighting against being closed off, and that to me was the most important thing, was having this machine going inside of his head that he couldn't stop, in terms of what he's thinking about and all of that. Even with the scenes with, especially the ones with Molly Ringwald, is when she's not paying attention to him, you can just see he's just the rat is on the wheel, and it's just running top speed, and he's just trying to figure out, how do I approach this relationship that will serve me in a way that will help, him to achieve his goal, which is for her to love him.
Very
um
controlling, very controlling.
yeah, it was wild. Interestingly enough, when I was on set, Mick, he really wanted to ramp up the tension between me and Molly Ringwald on set and everything. And so he asked me to just go and be around her, like don't necessarily interact or anything, but just go and just break her space a little bit,
Yeah.
and stuff. And so when she'd be in the middle of a conversation with somebody else, I would like go and stand and but stand like with my back facing to her, but like I get really close to her where when she couldn't see me, and I just stand right there, and I could hear her behind me slowly figuring out that I was like right behind her, and she would be kind of looking over, and then she would scurry away, and he was like, so it was, it was in order to, I mean, I guess Mick's theory is that, that will make her more uncomfortable with me on set if I make it really strange and uncomfortable with her offset.
Is there, when you look back on that role, um, is there anything that you feel um, you missed in terms of, "Oh, I wish we could have dialed it just a little bit this way," or do you think you fulfilled what you wished that performance to achieve on screen? Because then it goes through the editing, and then they spit
Yeah,
out this character that's like, they put these pieces together, that is not the equation that I gave them.
yeah,
Not, it's not
no,
that it's about you, but
yeah.
you have your parts of the equation to play.
Yeah, no, the arc was so specific for, for Harold, from him going from, the more introverted, uncertain, kind of shy, strange guy that he was in the beginning, to then being seduced by Nadine, coming to himself, his ego then suddenly finally emerges, and he becomes sort of this narcissistic, more uh not diabolical, but just, he's just more certain, definitely more certain of himself, and uh and and he just inserts himself into situations that previous to meeting Nadine, Laura San Giacomo's character, he never would have ever done any of these things or behaved that way. He never would have had, the certainty that he could get away with it necessarily.
She opened
Um,
some doors.
yeah, yeah,
Which,
yeah,
had she been a
exactly.
different kind of person, had she been, having visions, better visions of a certain, Mother Abigail instead of the walking dude, I think that she could have made him a much more, positive person, and instead she just played on his desire for lust and revenge.
Yes, absolutely. That's totally true. He was a very malleable personality that, whoever finally paid attention to him,
Yeah,
whoever of the female
yeah.
persuasion, he's not, it's not that he was ever really, necessarily looking for a father figure or a best friend. he just wanted to find a woman that loved him or liked him or paid attention to him,
Yeah.
even, gave him the time of day. So yes, that was definitely what was really cool about the arc. And you mentioned it earlier that Harold Lauder most assuredly, I think, had the most dynamic arc of all of the characters in it. And then especially in the end, coming to the realization that basically he had been used, and
It's too
wow,
late.
it's too late. And and I think that was very cool. But I was totally happy with it. It was great. The shooting schedule was obviously, it was such a big production, and I had a good amount of time between days on set, often, and it gave me a lot of time to really work the scenes, rehearse them in my hotel room, and just go over them and over them and over them. And so when I was on set, I was very loose. I was really present, and I had made certain choices. But again, as an actor, I don't ever want those choices to seem so pre-planned that they're obvious to the audience.
Yeah.
I still want there to be enough relaxed quality in my performance that it seems spontaneous, even if it isn't necessarily, but also to allow for spontaneity to be accessible in the moments, that something may happen that's unexpected, and to have that not throw me off, but to introduce a whole new behavior or reaction to a situation.
Wow.
Now, on the track of introducing new things, you wrote Fallout. Um, so was this completely a story you wanted to tell for your character, or how did that grow in your head that this was what you wanted to have be the story?
Well, Brad Wright, he unfortunately told me that they really, that they have an open door policy there for pitching show ideas. And I took that as okay, let's do this. And I might have driven them a little crazy. I can't remember how many different show ideas I pitched to them, but then after a while, I think they realized this guy's not going to stop until until we take one of his ideas and make it a show. But Joe Malozzi took me kind of under his wing, and really honed my pitch, my how I pitched and how I wrote the treatments and the synopses and all of that kind of stuff, and especially how I wrote the beat sheet for the script itself. The beat sheet, basically, they don't want you to write any dialogue or anything like that. They're gonna do all of that kind of stuff. So from a story perspective, I'm really just writing what's happening, what's taking place, in more of a descriptive manner, without really inserting any kind of dialogue. And that was tough, because as a writer, you want to write what are they saying and everything, but it's, you're more writing intentions, and things like that. And out of, like, I guess maybe the six or eight different ideas that I went in there and pitched them, this particular one, they found interesting enough that they wanted me to go back and rework it. And I reworked it. And like I said, I worked with Joe Malozzi. What a great guy. He really helped me to get it into the format that they're used to seeing, that they're used to working with. And that's what pushed it over the edge, was working with Joe. But it was a fun storyline. It was just something I just wanted to figure out something that was on a scale of 1 to 10, that the outcome of the events was going to either be total disaster or 100% success, without too much in between. That, like, everything is at stake. You can't, not, you either, this either works out, or everybody's dead or whatever, you know what I mean? So those are the kind of the storylines I was trying to go for, was these, really, really
Big
heavy,
scale.
big scale,
Yeah.
and
Lots of
and it was,
stake.
yeah. So it was a great experience for me to be able to go in there and work on that particular episode. Um,
Was the
it's
undercover
fun.
Gould thread in there from the beginning, or is that something that was added later?
No, that was there. Yeah, that was
From the,
absolutely there.
from the word go. That's
Yeah,
great.
yeah,
She was
totally.
good.
Yeah, totally.
Well, you took,
And
yeah.
oh yeah, I was just saying, it's the writing part. 'Cause I'd written quite a few scripts previous to my time on Stargate. Nothing that had been produced yet, but that certainly gave me a boost in my morale as far as being able to get stuff produced that I wrote. And it is exciting. I mean, in more recent times, I've written stuff that came out years ago, but in more recent times, I wrote a script called Dead Man's Hand, based on a graphic novel by Source Point Press that Stephen Dorff and Cole Hauser starred in, a very cool Western. And it was very cool to see them performing, the dialogue that I wrote and everything. It was really awesome, and a movie of the week, kind of a female-driven thriller called Deadly Justice, that's out as well, that came out early last year too. That I'm excited about, and that one, nothing much changed. On Dead Man's Hand, Brian Skiba, the director, did do a director's pass on it. Not much changed, but some stuff did, but it's nice to see something that is 100% all my writing, and Deadly Justice is that, that was a lot of fun. I have some stuff too that I'm working on now that's in a pre-production kind of a stage that should be going into production this year, that I've written as well, besides other movies of the week that I wrote years ago.
I'm taking a look. You're keeping busy. I'm really, really happy for you. Is there anything in particular from these that you can pull out that you think Stargate fans should be on the lookout for in the future?
I wish I have a really cool sci-fi series that I wrote a number of years back that hasn't been produced, but it has to do with the reptilian agenda and that whole thing, and it's it's very I think it's a very cool concept, but I mean, I don't want to reveal too much about it.
Sure.
You never know if I can get it made, but I would love to do more in the sci-fi fantasy world. I love those genres. They last a lot longer than other genres do, for the most part. And I also really, really enjoy the whole convention circuit and convention world and that whole scene, and those types of projects they lend well to going and doing those types of events, and I really enjoy doing those events. So I would love to see at some point myself back in that world, on something new. It would be great. But in the meantime, I'm more working along the dramatic lines and comedic lines. I got a comedic series that I've developed right now that has a great cast attached to it. Besides myself, Brian Austin Green from 90210, and David Faustino from Married with Children, and Jason London, and Ernie Reyes Jr., Vanessa Angel. I have all these cast attachments now. I wanted to do like a 90s kind of throwback cast, Gen X cast for it, and it's kind of like The Office meets Vice Principals, but I won't tell you where it's set, because if I tell you where it's set, someone's going to steal it from me, because it's just too genius. But it's very funny, and we have some decent headway on that right now. I got some meetings coming up with some production companies out in LA, and we're in the fundraising phase as well, which is it's going slower than I'd like, but we have some interesting connections in that department as well.
Good for you, man. That's great. I have about 3 or 4 fan questions for you. I know we're running long.
Yeah.
Can I ask them real quick?
Go for it, man. I got nothing but time.
Okay, I appreciate it. Dan Ben wanted to know, was there anything in Fallout that got cut, that didn't make it? I loved this episode, and I thought it was like a quieter character piece, like a submarine character piece, even though we've literally got the fate of the world in our hands here.
Yeah, not much. I mean, the whole script writing team over there, the writer producers over there, they have it down to an absolute science. I mean, when you're talking about stuff ending up on the editing room floor, you're like one or two lines here and there, too long of an entrance, too long of an exit. Maybe, I mean, you're talking about just squeezing the air out of scenes. You're not talking about losing entire scenes. I don't think that we ever lost an entire scene in any episode that I shot of Stargate.
Wow, okay.
It's I mean they got the page count down to an absolute science.
Was there any input, Dan asked separately, about Jonas's appearance when he came back that
Well,
you
at
got
that
that you
point-
wanted to change or evolve? His hair looked cooler.
I don't know about the hair. It was one of those things. I didn't want to slick my hair back again, like in the last season of episode 5. Also, he'd been away from his home planet for a while, and then the wardrobe that they had the characters in was kind of a different feel than the way that the characters were dressed on my home planet before. It was a little bit more disco,
Well, they had interacted with Earth now, so who knows what they took away.
So and my manager was just totally on my manager and agent for that matter, but more my manager just did not want me cutting my hair again at that point because there were some other roles that I was up for, some other things going on, and he thought that I had more flexibility, with longer hair than just going with the short cropped military do that I really wanted to have for Jonas when he's fitting in with the team and fitting in with the whole military kind of vibe that he was living in and wanting to be comfortable in that world. And so at the end of the day, there weren't too many options outside of the Beatles bangs.
Yeah. For sure. Lock Watcher. Go ahead.
Yeah, and then it was odd because the actress opposite me had the exact same hairdo.
Right, exactly.
I was like, and we were looking at each other in the makeup room, just like, what's going on here? I was like, yeah, I guess this is the trend on Langara.
There you go.
Hello, this is the Kelowna do.
Lock Watcher. Was there anything that surprised you, or that you were like, yes, we nailed that when you saw the final cut?
I would have to say, I mean, the production design, that's what they nailed. I mean, the sets that they build for Stargate is one of my, again, my dad being a production designer, I pay attention to these things, and it helps to really, really make the world very real. Like we were talking about the episode Frozen, the way that they did design that stage, they brought in all these heavy AC units that made the whole entire set like, there was like 38 degrees on the set, and everybody is wearing parkas, and you can see your actual breath, and because they wanted to make it as cold as it should be, so that they didn't have to add fake steam coming out of the mouth or whatever when you're talking, but that attention to detail as an actor, it just brings the whole world to life.
Wow.
So the sets that they built for our episode there that we were just talking about I was there. I'm like, I can't believe that this came somewhat out of my mind. I mean, all the dialogue and everything didn't, but the world and what we were going through all did. And to be surrounded by it in with all that physical mass is just, it's extraordinary. The production design on Stargate was par excellence. It was just it was as good as you would have on any major feature film with a ton of money behind it. It was incredible working on that show.
I think that you probably are owed more than you think. I don't know how much you know about SGU, Stargate Universe, but the driving force of a big chunk of that plot are Nequadria planets in the in the Milky Way that are just ticking time bombs. And they have one that features in the pilot, and it explodes, much like Langara was going to explode. And again,
I think it did explode eventually in one of their movies.
Yeah, well, not Langara didn't, but and then they have another exploding Nequadria planet at the end of season 1. So there was a lot of that was born out of that idea that they used later on because it's a power source.
Yeah.
Peace Rider, were there? This is the last question for you. Were there ever any murmurs after season 7 about bringing you back any further?
Not. I wish.
Yeah.
I really wish, especially when they were doing the Stargate movies and stuff.
Yeah.
I know I did a bit in the Stargate video game,
Yep.
but
It got canceled.
yeah, that's too bad. Maybe it'll come back. Who knows? But I mean, I would have loved it. There was initially murmurings of Jonas Quinn going on to Atlantis, and for whatever reason that got scrapped. I don't know the ins and outs of it, but I really would have loved to have had that character kind of come and go from in those different worlds, those different universes. There was plenty of room available for Jonas Quinn to pop his head up eating a banana, but
No oranges.
no oranges. Oranges are way too distracting. But no, unfortunately, that just didn't manifest. But you never know.
You've had a good run, dude.
Yes, exactly.
Linda?
I've just thoroughly enjoyed talking about character building and getting the chance to chat with you has been really wonderful. I still have tons more questions, but I think we've kind of run out of time.
Oh, it's no problem. You can ask me something that you're dying for, and then I'll grab the pooch off.
Oh, the dog,
here
yeah.
And show
Okay,
him to
that's
the
my
crowd.
question. Let's see your dog.
Okay,
because I
great.
love
Let me get him.
pets.
Hold on one second.
He is all over social. Aww. There's Snoot.
There we go.
Hello, sweetheart.
He's bigger than I expected.
Aw.
That's a big corgi.
Actually, he's kind of small for
is
his
he?
size. Yeah,
Okay.
he's only 28 pounds. He's a wonderful Theodore Corgivelt, a rough rider.
Is this your first dog?
No, I normally I've only had Labradors previous to this guy, but I don't know if I can ever go back. I've always had this obsession with corgis, but I never owned one, and he is just a magical part of it. Look at that face.
Yeah.
Who can say no to
That's
this
beautiful.
guy?
Absolutely
He is just
not.
a gorgeous fella.
Yeah, life is better with dogs. They're the best people. We don't deserve them.
I know it's true,
And
It's
he's
so true.
got quite a presence on social media.
He's a great guy. He's got the cutest sploot you ever saw in your life.
Yeah, the camera loves him. Look at that.
Corin, I really feel like we've, had the second half of a conversation that really you started last year. It's been wonderful to have you on to dig a little bit deeper into the process. And I can tell you, just from one creative person to another, you've really gotten my wheels turning about more that I want to hear from the people who have come on the show, others like you yourself, who are I want to ask about the creative process and about dissecting and bringing to life these things that we just see. Oh, well, it's just words on a page. It's more than words on a page. There is life there and there is truth there. You just have to find it.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I mean, I probably with
Yes.
the creating a character for the stage of life, I've been planning on doing it for a while now, but I was going to do a chapter by chapter on my YouTube, which I will eventually do this in the near future. and I'm just going to, go through one chapter at a time per episode, read it, and then expound on it, and then do that chapter by chapter all the way through.
Oh,
So,
awesome.
eventually that I will do that.
Well, we're going to be here for it.
Excellent,
Yeah.
excellent.
Thank you, my friend. And thank you, Linda.
Oh,
Yes, thank
anytime.
both of you. It's wonderful to see you all.
Good to see you guys. I'm going to wrap up the show on this side.
All right, David.
Be well. Sorry, guys, I muted my own microphone. Linda Fury, producer of Dial the Gate, and Corin Nemec, Jonas Quinn in Stargate SG-1. And if you have not seen his performance as Harold in The Stand, you're missing out. Go and check it out. It is finally available in glorious HD. My tremendous thanks to my moderating team. You guys make this possible. Anthony, Jeremy, Marsha, Summer, Tracy, Raj, Lockwatcher, and Kevin. My producer, Linda, again, Gatekeeper Fury. My webmaster, Frederick Marcoux, over at Concepts Web, who keeps dialthegate.com up and running. And if you enjoyed the episode, give us a like. We really appreciate it. It helps the channel grow. We have Dean Marshall coming up in just around 17 minutes. Sergeant Bates in Stargate Atlantis. We're going to be speaking with him momentarily. I appreciate you tuning in, and thanks again to Corin Nemec. We will see you on the other side.